It is now my privilege to introduce this afternoon's guest speakers. Our moderator, Lohanne Cook, is the Manager of Public Engagement at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures. Before joining the museum, Lohanne has produced engaging and educational programs by collaborating with nonprofits, film organizations, and festivals including American Cinema Editors, New Filmmakers Los Angeles, Newport Beach Film Festival, San Francisco International Film Festival, and Variety Magazine's 10 Cinematographers to Watch and Billion Dollar Cinematographer Series. Through her work, she seeks to bring filmmakers and film enthusiasts together to learn, create dialogue, and celebrate the history, art, and craft of film. And now to introduce our two special guests. Ken Kwapis has directed 12 features, including A Walk in the Woods, He's Just Not That Into You, and The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. His documentary, We Are the Shags, premiered at the 2026 South by Southwest Festival. Kwapis helped launch 9 television series, among them The Larry Sanders Show, The Bernie Mac Show, and The Office. He earned an Emmy nomination as a producer-director on Malcolm in the Middle, and recently directed the 4-episode revival, Malcolm in the Middle, Life's Still Unfair, which premieres April 10th on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+. Kwapis is the author of the memoir, But What I Really Want to Do Is Direct. Debra Spinney was born and raised in New York and is the eldest of 6 children. While she was working at the Children's Television Workshop in 1973, she met her future husband, Carol Spinney. 13 days after their first date, they were engaged to be married, and they spent the next 46 and a half years together, working, traveling, raising a family, and cherishing their love for each other. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Now, before I get into the conversation, I just want to see by raise of hands, how many people are seeing this movie in a theater for the first time? Yes, this is going to be a great conversation. And then anybody seeing this film for the first time ever? Oh my gosh, all right, 2 for 2. I'll leave it there. I want to leave on a win. So I'd love to begin with how you both got to Sesame Street. Debra, I'd like to start with you, and how that road led to Carol, aka Big Bird.
Okay, I'll try to make a little bit of a long story short, but I wanted to work in Manhattan. I was kind of infatuated with that idea, and I went into an employment agency, and they got me an interview with a place called the Children's Television Workshop, which was what Sesame Street's headquarters were called then. Now it's Sesame Workshop. But anyway, I was sitting at my desk typing, and I see this cute guy coming towards me with a big smile on his face, and I knew he was Big Bird because in the offices everybody has a monitor in their office so they could watch the feed from the set 17 blocks north on Broadway. And I see him coming towards me, and I'm like, oh God, Big Bird's coming towards me. And so I put on my best smile, and he was very shy, but he came up to me and he said, I'm Carol Spinney. I said, I know. And I introduced myself, and he asked me out to dinner. He said, I hope this is okay, but I'd love to take you out to dinner tonight. And I said, oh, I'm very flattered, but I'm due home to cook dinner for my husband. So he was like, so we just said, bye. And he went off. 6 months later, we were in the Tavern on the Green for a Christmas party that Sesame Street was throwing for everybody. And I see him talking with Emilio Delgado, who was, I'm sure you all know, as Luis. And Emilio I knew him very well because he was best friends with my boss at CTW. So he says, hi, Debbie, come on over. And there's Carol, and he's looking at me with this big smile, and I'm thinking, oh, he remembers me, So I go over, and we had a lovely time chatting, and he said, how about after this party here, will you stay and we'll eat dinner here? And I thought, I can't. I gotta go home. So I kind of told him that with a smile on my face, and he was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I walked away. About 4 months after that, I was in a recording studio across town. They had asked me to assist with the little kids who were going to sing on a record album, and Carol was there. He was there with Emilio, actually. And at that point, just so you know, things didn't work out with that previous person. So I was, you know, a kind of a free bird, so to speak. And so he sees me and he's smiling, and I'm thinking, oh, what's going to happen next? And he says, we're going away on tour for 2 months, but when I get back, will you go out to dinner with me? And I said, yes. So he did. He went away in 2 months. He was gone. Sure enough, he called me the day he got back. We went out to dinner. He took me to Tavern on the Green, as a matter of fact. And I swear, if you could have a film of us eating dinner at the table, it would be like a Disney movie with little birds and things flying around our head, you know, butterflies. And we really did fall in love the first night. And we saw each other every day after that. And 13 days later, like the introduction said, he asked me to marry him. And I said yes. And so there's just one more little catch, that's okay. So I had been on a quiz show, and I won a trip. I was right around the recording session time. I won a trip to Switzerland, all expenses paid and all that kind of stuff. So it was a big deal. So about a month after we were together, we decided to go on this trip to Switzerland. And they're pouring us our very expensive glass of wine, which we could never have afforded ourselves. And I raised my glass and I said, I'd like to toast you. And he's like, yeah, okay, we did his glass. And I said, I want to toast you, and I want to toast your persistence. And he said, he didn't clink or anything. He said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, you know, your persistence. I want to toast that. And he's like, I still don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, you know, you asked me out when I was typing, and then you asked me out at the Christmas party, and then you asked me out at the recording studio, and you never gave up on me. And he had this look of shock on his face, and he says, you mean you were all those girls? And I was like, yeah, that's me. So he had no idea. I don't know what to say about that, but anyway, it's a true story, and he liked to tell that himself. So that's how I got to Sesame Street.
I think we're done now, right?
We're being kind of long. You can't leave anything out, though.
You needed every second of that. Ken, this was your first feature film, and technically Big Birds, too. How did you join the project?
Well, in 1984, I had only directed a couple of things for television, a couple of after-school specials. And when I was invited to meet at Warner Brothers on Follow That Bird. And so the producer of Follow That Bird is a fellow named Tony Garnett. And Tony Garnett is English, and he was known for making incredibly hard-hitting, edgy documentaries for the BBC about, you know, social justice issues. Probably the last person you would, you know, think, oh, this is the guy we want to produce the, you know, Big Bird screen debut. But in fact, Tony had a young associate working with him who had seen one of my after-school specials and recommended that he meet me. And that young associate was Amy Pascal, who is now one of a big deal in our business. And so Amy Pascal got me to Warner Brothers, and then what happened is I had a series of auditions, including meeting Jim Henson. And finally, the last of the auditions was meeting Carol and Debra. So.
And as a director, what were some steps that you took that helped you prepare for this larger-than-life character? You know, while we were discussing and prepping for this, you also mentioned that meeting and working with Carol, shifting perspectives.
Well, I was a new director, and for me, when I started directing the film, I thought of Big Bird really as an object. It was like, okay, how am I going to photograph this 8-foot character? Like, how do you frame this character with anyone else? For me, it was entirely a technical challenge. And it wasn't until I started to get to know Carol and frankly got to know Big Bird that I started to relate to Big Bird's emotional story in a very personal way. And so over the course of the film, I think, you know, Big Bird, instead of being an object, turned into a subject for me. So I felt like, you know, one of the things that I feel is really strong about the film is its emotional content. And again, I credit Carol Spinney with sort of leading me, you know, to the heart of the picture.
And this is Big Bird's first departure from Sesame Street. And tell us about building that world and creating that look.
Well, one of the things I wanted to do was make Sesame Street itself look filmic. I mean, nothing against the show, but, you know, it's a multi-camera show, and it had a very minimal set. So I enlisted some collaborators who, again, very unexpected choice or unusual choices for a film like this. So the production designer is a woman named Carol Spear, and she was known. I mean, if you may know that name, but she was at that time she was mainly known for having worked with David Cronenberg. So again, a very unlikely choice. But what she did is she really, I mean, she loved working on the film, and I mean, she sort of really brought certain things to life that nobody else could have. I'll just mention. I mean, she designed the Countmobile. And there's a very short little, it's not even a scene, there's a little short cut of the Count at home watching TV, and I remember how excited Carol was when she showed me the design of the Count's television set. And the other kind of unusual choice was our cinematographer, Curtis Clark. Curtis Clark at that time was mainly known for, he kind of made a splash photographing the Peter Greenaway film, The Draftsman's Contract. Now, I don't know if you've seen this film, but it's this, you know, it's a very, what's the right way to put it? Well, it's an art film with a capital A, and every composition in it feels like a painting. So again, an odd choice, and yet I think what Curtis brought to this is, I think the way he lights Big Bird really helps you get, you know, connect with him emotionally, with Bird. I said him, but you may know this, but Big Bird is of indeterminate gender.
I disagree with that.
Oh, really? No, but then Carol said that to me.
I read that in your book, and I was going to write you a letter.
Well, Carol said that.
I don't know what he was drinking, but that's not right. He always said, when people would say, is it a boy or a girl, he always said, well, listen, they say he's going here, or he did this. He's a boy.
All right. Well, okay. I'll get that right in the second edition.
I meant to tell you that earlier.
Okay, we have that down with Big Bird, but Big Bird is still like around 6. Let me get some other facts.
Yes.
Okay.
8'2".
I'm not talking.
Deborah will help rewrite that section.
Please. I'm free.
For a set, around how many puppeteers worked on it?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know the number of puppeteers, but we shot the film in Toronto, and in the early 80s, Jim Henson had nurtured a whole group of Toronto-based puppeteers for the HBO show Fraggle Rock. So most of our puppeteers, except for some of the, it's a wonderful, wonderful show, and we had a few scenes with a lot of puppet characters there. So I don't know the number, but again, it was the Fraggle Rock team working on it.
And then, Deborah, you were able to work on that show, right?
On the film.
On the film?
On the film and on the show,
Well,
correct?
I don't know if you'd call it me working. I was sitting next to him the whole time going, yeah, that's good, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I was there for moral support and, you know, to put my 2 cents in there. But I don't know if I was, you know, really officially working on it. But Ken gave me a credit at the end, so thank you.
I saw that. Helping Big Bird is a very important role.
It is.
There's some pretty big themes, pretty big emotions that you have in the movie, leaving home to find home, finding your community, and strength and diversity. How did you and the team find balance, especially for kids?
Well, I mean, I feel like everyone at a certain point in their life is struggling to find their people, and I think that, again, one of the things I love about the film, I mean, it truly is like the original DEI film. But I love the fact that you don't really, I mean, what's wonderful about the film is you never feel like you're being, fed a plate of, being fed some vegetables. It's like the message is sort of there, but it's kind of tucked away until the end, until the climactic moment when Maria gives a speech, which, for those of you who've seen the film, you'll remember, but it's basically the mission statement of the film and the show, and that is that, there is strength in diversity. And I remember planning that scene and trying to figure out, how do I shoot this, just Maria giving a speech in a way that sort of expresses that visually. And I don't remember how I came up with it, but I decided to shoot her speech with a 360-degree pan. So it starts on Maria and pretty quickly then pans away from her and swings it makes a 360-degree move, and in which we see all of the characters, so we had every puppeteer working.
That was my cameo.
And not only every actor, we didn't have enough people to even fill the shot, so basically the crew's in the shot. But it felt like a really wonderful way to visually express the idea of community, but also community of people, monsters, grouches, diversity. So.
And that's I think the first time we've kind of seen Sesame Street beyond just the street, that we could see the whole neighborhood.
Yeah, I guess there's Mr. Hooper's stores on one side. I don't think you ever see the opposite side of the street. Except
You don't really. Yeah. And I was really amazed when we were on the set for the movie. The other things on the street were so real. They didn't just have a sign that said barber shop. If you went in the barber shop, there was hair on the floor and scissors in the blue stuff, and I mean, it looked like you could get your hair cut. So it was very real, and we all wished that it could be like that on Sesame Street.
Well, again, all credit to Carol Spear.
Yeah, she was really good.
Really, all the details are there.
What were some of the toughest scenes to work on? And Deborah, I'd love to hear the times you were on set,
I think I know what you'll say, so I'm not going to say that. The one day I wasn't there.
Oh, okay, I'll say that.
You know that one.
Well, in the script, there's a bit of scene description that you see, Bert and Ernie are in a biplane scouring the countryside looking for Big Bird, and they spot him in a cornfield or some kind of wheat field or something. And I remember in prep reading that and thinking, oh, crap, like biplane, cornfield, North by Northwest, of course. So we recreated the moment where the crop duster tries to buzz Cary Grant, and I guess I got a VHS copy of the film and just sort of copied it shot for shot.
Carol came home and said, "I almost died today." It's the plane right.
And there are shots of the biplane where there are two stunt flyers wearing Bert and Ernie heads.
That's a job for you. I think Carol, probably one of the hardest things he taped. Remember when you were taping the song "One Little Star," which is so beautiful, and Big Bird was up in the hayloft above, the top of the barn, and that was like midnight. I think you finished at 2 a.m. And I know it was a real small space, and Carol's there in the hay, and it was kind of an awkward physical thing to do, and plus he was tired, after going all day. And I know I couldn't even fit up in the loft for that scene, so I was underneath in the barn below, and there was a cow giving birth. And I was just mesmerized by what was happening. And out pops this little calf, and I know, you missed this, I'm sorry. And it just hit the floor, and it was immediately covered by 1,000 flies. And the farmer and his wife were like, "We're going to name it Big Bird." That was what I was doing while they were up in the hayloft.
I don't think I'm going to be able to watch the scene anymore. I'm not thinking of that.
Listen for the moo.
Oh, man.
Surprised you there, huh?
I never knew this story.
I'm saving them.
To stay in this moment, not so much about the cow, but the toughest thing for the puppeteers. How difficult was that, getting puppeteers to fit these scenes? Like, I'm curious about the cars and having them work those cars. There's
Right.
for those who haven't seen it yet, please keep your eye out on all the cars in this film. It's amazing in every way.
Well, I have one very vivid memory of watching Frank Oz and Jim Henson, who performed Bert and Ernie, debating how to get into the fuselage of the miniature biplane to operate the puppets. And it was like, I felt like I was eavesdropping on two yoga teachers, because it was like Jim would say, "Well, if you put your right foot on top of my shoulder," and they were literally trying to puzzle out how to contort themselves to fit into this small space. So I all I can say is, like Carol, I mean, they were flexible.
They were really contortionists, really. Yeah.
Cool. I really did not expect that for toughest scenes. I'm so great that you had your own side story going on. And on the flip side, what were some of your favorite scenes to be on set for?
I would say I think the happiest day I can think of was when there's a song called Easy Going Day, and it's contagious. And the entire crew was singing it, and it took a long part of the day to do that scene. It's wonderful out on the farm, and Big Bird looks so great outside anyway. But everybody was singing. Everybody who worked on the whole show just sang all day long, and it's one of those catchy songs. I guarantee you'll be walking out of here singing it. It's really, really good. But I think Carol's favorite day was when he was in the truck with Waylon Jennings. Even though it was tough, because you're in this truck cabs, with Waylon and Carol. And but Waylon smoking like a chimney in there, and Carol didn't even smoke, but he did it anyway because he wanted to smoke with Waylon. And but it was really he just loved the experience of getting to know Waylon, and the music was great too. The Ain't No Road Too Long.
So, as you'll see, or as you'll remember, the Waylon Jennings' truck cab is absurdly tall in order to accommodate Big Bird.
That's right.
And there's no logic to it all. It looks completely ridiculous.
But that sort of goes along with everything else.
You touched upon it with the songs, and I'd love to segue there. Talk to us about the process. What was that like? And you already shared what song resonated with you, but I also love to hear a little bit more which songs that stood out for you as well.
I think that the number for me. I love Ain't No Road Too Long because it's an ensemble song.
Yeah.
It starts with Waylon and Carol, and then everyone gets to participate. So it's our chance to see the Countmobile in action, and Bert and Ernie in action. So I mean, it's a wonderful production number. But I would say the most important song for me, other than One Little Star, is I'm a Bluebird.
That's the one. Yeah. So, get the tissues ready.
Because it's and over the years I've met more than a fair share of people who said that scene traumatized them.
Really?
as children.
Yeah.
But it's
a beautiful song.
But it's great. And again, going back to Curtis Clark, he just managed to, even though in the scene, Joe Flaherty, who plays one of our villains, is aiming a spotlight at Big Bird.
Right.
There's something about how Curtis photographed Big Bird in that scene that's really strong.
It's powerful.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, that scene really resonated with me and is one of my favorite songs just because of how impactful it is to the story itself.
Yeah.
I won't spoil too much since of how many hands I saw at the beginning.
That's right.
But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about working with Jim Henson and Frank Oz. Any fun stories to share from both of you?
I can't think of anything actually from the movie itself. I mean, just working with them over the years is just such a privilege and really hysterical, because I liked when I'd go to the set and watch the whole old gang puppeting, and you find that you're not even watching the puppets anymore. You're watching the people under the puppets. And in those days, they were allowed to ad-lib a lot, so the funny stuff that would go on underneath there was hysterical. So I kind of, always had that in mind. But for the movie, I remember being there when Jim did the Kermit the Frog, the reporter, in front of the Dodo's house, and that was just fun to watch. But I don't know, maybe you saw more of them.
Yeah, I mean, they were both very, very gracious, and again, I'm like a newcomer, and the directing characters that they've created. I will share one thing. When I first met with Jim Henson, and he essentially said, "You've got the job," he said, I only want you to do, I'm only going to insist that you do one thing. And he said on the first day of shooting, he said, I want you to gather the crew, bring everyone together, and ask everyone to hold up one hand in the air for a solid minute. And I wasn't sure where he was going with this, but what he said, he wanted the crew to understand how taxing it is for the puppeteers to keep their puppet characters aloft while you're doing umpteen number of last second adjustments. And so that's what we did. First thing on day one of shooting was the whole crew stood there for a minute.
I think that's a really good suggestion, and that's without any weight on your hand as well, because you've got the puppet itself on your hand. So Carol had many a brawny guy say, I could do your job. I could hold that thing up. Carol goes, really? Okay. Let's get this iron. I don't know how we had two. We had two heavy things. He goes, you hold it up, I'll hold it up. Let's see who lasts longer. And this is a big guy, like a big football player. He's like, sure. He holds it up. Before a minute was even over, he's like, oh my God. And Carol could hold it up for 20 minutes, because he's trained that way. But nobody really gets it. That's why I think Jim's suggestion was very good. Yeah.
How old was Carol when he did this film?
How old was he?
Yeah.
Well, we did it in 84. So now I have to do math. So what was he? He's born in the end of 33. So 51.
So he did this whole film when he was 51.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone's going to have some homework tonight. Okay? We're going to hold our hands up for 1 minute.
Get the iron.
And then as you accomplish each one, keep adding a weight. This is good for your health and also to study the film.
That's right. Yeah.
I'd love to hear what were some of your favorite Easter eggs or movie references. We heard about the Hitchcock one, or maybe like special appearances that happened in the film.
I don't know about Easter eggs. I think you had something.
Yeah, well, this doesn't qualify as an Easter egg exactly, but at the end of the film, this climactic scene that I mentioned, when Maria gives her speech, there's a moment where there's several shots of characters applauding. I think applauding Big Bird's return, as I recall. And there's a shot of kind of an upstairs apartment window, and there's 2 or 3 puppets, peeking out of the window, and one of them on the call sheet was just named Elmo Monster, and that is Elmo's official debut. So,
yeah.
So.
All right, you'll keep your eyes open at that spot, right, everyone? And then I'm at my last question. It's when watching this film, like revisiting it for this conversation, I was still surprised by how shocked I was by how diverse the whole cast was. From gender, race, disabilities, age, ethnicity, even food lifestyles. The Grouch restaurant scene, iconic.
It's hysterical.
Yes. The movie is such a celebration of diversity. Could you share with us the importance of casting a variety of characters, especially now? Anything more that you'd like to add to that?
Well, I mean, I think that I don't think I was conscious of casting for diversity because it was so it's so baked into Sesame Street. It's like that's the whole point of it. And but I do remember a moment early in the film where Big Bird sees just another bird perched above where he is, and he sort of looks at this other bird longingly, and so I love the idea though that Big Bird needs to go on a journey to understand the importance of diversity. At the beginning, he's having a kind of an existential crisis, really feeling like he's so vulnerable when the social worker bird approaches him. So he's quick to say, yes, I need to be with my own kind. So again, the show has a mission, but in this story, Big Bird needs to get there. He gets to undergo a journey of self-discovery in order to learn the importance of diversity.
Yeah. And I just wanted to also ask or follow up in the process of doing that and for diversity. We have characters who are deaf, and then there were little moments that I saw that made it inclusive as well. Did you have interpreters on the scene? Like, how did you go about in making sure those, those casted felt included and prepared for?
I don't think nothing, not that I can remember, but
Yeah, I just think that I'll answer it in a. This is a sort of a sideways answer. I mean, I feel like the set was there. We sought to create a respectable environment. And I'll leave it at that.
I love it.
So.
All right, it's amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you all for coming.